Hey guys, welcome back to Go Soli. My name's Sophia, and for today's project, we're going to change it up. We're going to do something totally different, out of my comfort zone, but easy to do. So, if you are at all inspired by streetwear or by repurposing t-shirts, join me because we're going to be cutting some holes in our shirts and making them really different. So it's a neat way to take some old discarded t-shirts and give them a completely new look, a new life, and you can layer them however you like, go to the gym in them, or just wear them out as a really cool conversation starter. So here's what it looks like. And we'll get started. I like to use a shirt that's either my size or a little bit larger because as I add some holes to it, it kind of gathers the fabric, brings it in a little bit. So I wouldn't go smaller than your regular size, and then maybe just a little bit larger than what you usually wear too. That works as well. And then as far as what you're looking for when you're looking for shirts, go after the shirts that have some weird stains on them because you can help give them a life that they otherwise wouldn't have. And then also look in your athletic section. If there's any kind of athletic tank tops, those actually work really well because they tend to have a lot more ribbing on them. So when it comes time to make those holes and add a little bit of lining around them, you'll want something that has that ribbing because it'll give it a really cool effect. So that's one way to possibly cut down on the amount of shirts that you use, but get a lot more out of them. All right, so get your t-shirts and let's move on to the next step. First off, we're going to cut off each of the sleeves and then cut out the neckline as well, leaving some room around the seam to give yourself a little more space. And then I'm actually going to cut a little bit more so you can make your adjustments here. I'm narrowing my sleeve at the top and making the opening a little bit larger, and then folding over and repeating on the other side so everything is even. There we go, starting to look like a tank top. Your shirt may not have this covering on the back of the collar, but mine does, and it's kind of bulky, so I'm going to seam rip it off before we continue on to the next step. So I've measured my collar and folded in half. It's 10.5 inches. So times that by 2 to get the full length, and I've got 21 inches, or my circumference. I'm going to take that circumference and plug it into the formula for a circle. So 21 equals 2 pi r. So 21 equals 6.28 times r. So the radius is 3.34. I know that's a lot, but this measurement is important. So I'm going to fold the paper over once, fold it over again, and then measure out from that corner 3.34 inches. Your measurements might be a little different than mine depending on the size of your collar, but it's the same general principle, and when you cut it out, you'll have a nice even circle to work with. And as you can see, I'm measuring it out, making sure it's correct, and then placing my collar on top, and it looks good. For this shirt, I'm placing the circle directly in the center. I think for normal shirts, having the brand be right front smack dab in the center, it'd look kind of ironic to have a hole cut out directly there and just leaving a void space. So the next step is to take your collar, match the right side to the right side of your t-shirt fabric with the cut edges on the inside. Stretch your ribbing a little bit as you go. You want a consistent stretch all the way around to ensure that your circle is evenly spaced. This is actually why I give myself a little bit of room when I cut around the neckline, because I'm spacing it out even more and it allows the neckline to stretch with the circle. Once you're pinned, sew all the way around. Next, I'm taking my big scary scissors here, didn't realize that they look like jaws when they come onto the screen, and I'm trimming off the excess, just getting everything nice and neat, and then finishing it off with a zigzag stitch all the way around. You don't have to do this step, knits don't tend to fray over time, but it gives it a really nice look, and it's kind of nice to know that it will last over time. Alright, great. So we have this sewn in. The next step is to take our circle, and I just like to do this. I think it stabilizes it a little better. I like to sew a top stitch right on the outside of that seam. So that's what we're going to do next, and then we'll be done with our first circle. Looking pretty cool right now, right? And here's what it looks like once it's top stitched and on. I think it looks pretty good. Obviously it's gonna stretch a little bit any which way depending on if you're flat chested, larger chested, that kind of thing, but I think it looks pretty good. All right, let's move on to the next step. At this point, I'm cutting off the very bottom hem of my shirt. And you don't have to be boring like me. If you want to cut it off at a slant or cut off more and make it a crop top, by all means, the world is your oyster. Go for it. Just save that hem at the very bottom. We're going to use that to bind our sleeves and our collar or to make more circles. It's up to you. I've chosen to finish this shirt with a lettuce hem, which is essentially zigzag stitching the end, letting the end of the fabric roll over a little bit, and then gently pulling the fabric as it goes through the machine, so you're sewing more zigzags with less space. That starts to bulk up the fabric and create this wavy texture all the way around, and when it comes out, it looks a little bit like lettuce, hence the name lettuce hem. When you're pinning your collar, you want that the collar that you're adding to your shirt to be about 85 to 90% of the length of the opening of the shirt. So there are two different ways that you can do this. The way that I'm showing here is that I'm pinning and stretching my fabric as I go. I'm not stretching the t-shirt, I'm just stretching the hem, and that's going to allow the fabric to gather in a way that's nice and even around the shirt. The other method, if you want to be very accurate, is to measure the size of your opening and then multiply it by 0.9 or 0.85 if you've got a very stretchy fabric, and that'll give you the right size length that you can then pin in place. When you're done pinning, finish off with a zigzag stitch. I'm adding a top stitch here as I did with the other circle. Then find the ends that you sewed together and tack them down in place. This will hide them from view so it looks like a nice regular collar on the outside. So we're looking pretty good now. The next step is to finish off the sleeves. So if you want to, you can just roll the fabric in and do a rolled hem stitch and be totally fine with that, or you can take some other hemline or sleeve or other ribbing and just re-rib the sides. So that's something I might try with some of my scraps here, but it's up to you and the result's gonna look really cool. So let's hop into it and finish up the shirt. The process for sewing the sleeves is the same that you're going to use for the collar. So instead of showing you that, I'm just going to show you a montage of me petting my cat. Alright, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you give it a shot yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks and take care.